I should have just said yes. People say life isn't fair, like it's just a passing thought, something small like missing the bus or forgetting your umbrella on a rainy day. But when you're 17 and the whole damn system is stacked against you, those words stop being comforting. They start sounding like a warning. I learned that the hard way. My name's Alex. I come from the kind of family people like to call hardworking, as a way to say poor without making anyone uncomfortable. My mom is a nurse, single mother, tired eyes, permanent back pain. Every day she came home smelling like antiseptic and sorrow, and still managed to smile like she wasn't breaking. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment, where the walls were thin and the air always smelled faintly like mold. I'd fall asleep to sirens and wake up to neighbors yelling through paper walls. But I had dreams. Stupid ones, maybe. Of leaving, going to college, doing something that didn't involve choosing between rent and groceries. That's why I worked my ass off. Straight A's honors classes. No distractions. And for a while, that was enough. Enough to get me into Glencrest Academy, the most elite private school in the city. Full scholarship. A chance. A foot in the door of a world that had never let me even peek through the window. But Glencrest wasn't just a school. It was a place where rich kids got to cosplay as normal students, while the rest of us were background props in their coming-of-age story. It was all designer sneakers, trust funds, Tesla rides, and weekend ski trips in Switzerland. And then there was Julian Vale, and I remember the first time I saw him. Second week of school, he was wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than our entire month's rent. Blonde hair pushed back like he'd just stepped out of a movie. The kind of face people like to stare at, even when they didn't want to. He walked like the hallways belonged to him. Like he'd built them himself, and just decided to let the rest of us exist in them. People whispered about him. His family owned Vale Tech, some billion-dollar tech empire. There were rumors he'd had a private tutor who used to work for NASA. Others said he once hacked the school system, just to see if he could. It was probably true. Julian was smart. The worst kind of smart. The manipulative kind. And he was gay, which at first made me feel kind of hopeful. Like maybe, just maybe, I wasn't going to be the only one in this place who felt different. But I learned quick, Julian wasn't like me. He wasn't out and proud. He was out and dangerous. It started when I was assigned to tutor him in chemistry. He'd failed 2 quizzes, and the school wanted to preserve his academic dignity, their words, not mine, by pairing him with someone who could help. That someone was me. At first I was just flattered. I thought maybe I could help him. Maybe I could finally prove I was good at something more than just being invisible. Our first tutoring session went fine. He was polite, a little too flirty, but I chalked it up to his usual charm. Julian flirted with everyone. Boys, girls, teachers, I'd seen it. By the 3rd session, he wasn't being subtle anymore. He sat too close, touched my hand too long when I passed him a paper, laughed at things that weren't funny. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me liked the attention. Another part was terrified of it. Then he put his hand on my thigh. It was light, gentle, like he was daring me to flinch. I did. I moved his hand and said quietly, "Don't." His expression didn't change. That was the scary part. He just smiled, not embarrassed, not apologetic, just amused.
"Why are you pretending you don't want me?"
he asked. I stood up. My chest was tight and my hands were cold. "I'm not pretending," I said. "I'm not interested. In you." That was only half true. I was interested in boys. I just wasn't interested in him. And even if I had been, it didn't matter. Something about him felt off, predatory. Like he didn't just want to be liked, he wanted to be worshipped. He didn't say anything else, just nodded once, smiled wider. I should have known. Things started unraveling a week later. First it was small, petty. Someone dumped juice into my backpack when I left it unattended. A rumor spread that I'd stolen a calculator from the science lab. I hadn't. Then a classmate showed me an anonymous post about me on some private school gossip app. Scholarship leech Alex B thinks he's better than everyone. Spoiler, he's not. My stomach sank, but I told myself it was just rich kids being cruel. It got worse. One morning I opened my locker and found a note. Should have said yes. That same day, I got called into the guidance office. The counselor looked uncomfortable.
We've had some concerns raised about your behavior.
What behavior?
There have been anonymous complaints,
She said, not meeting my eyes.
inappropriate conduct, harassment, academic dishonesty.
I felt like the floor had dropped out beneath me. Wait, what?
We're not making any assumptions, but we're obligated to investigate. In the meantime, your recommendation letters have been put on hold.
I felt my breath catch. You're pulling my college recs over anonymous rumors?
It's not personal, Alex. It's procedure.
But it was personal. I knew it. Julian was behind it. I tried to confront him, cornered him after English class. I was shaking so hard I thought I'd puke. You're doing this, I whispered. He tilted his head.
Doing what?
You've been messing up with me using those kids that have been bothering me, right? I let it slide because I didn't want any problems, but now you're messing with my academic opportunities?
You know what?
He smiled in a lazy, satisfied grin.
I warned you. Don't act like this is a surprise.
You're ruining my life because I rejected you? Seriously?
No, I'm ruining your life because you thought you could say no and still walk away clean.
He leaned closer.
This is Glencrest, Alex. People like you don't win here. You survive if people like me let you.
I stood there frozen, throat raw, fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. He walked away without looking back. That was the moment I realized the truth. I wasn't at school anymore. I was on trial. And Julian Vale was the judge, jury, and executioner. I used to think the worst part of being powerless was the pain. But it wasn't. It was the silence. The kind of silence that followed you into every room. The silence that screamed through closed doors and sat on your chest when people looked at you and then looked away. That silence was louder than anything Julian ever said. Because no one was talking. Not my teachers, not my classmates, not even my friends. Not that I had many left. By October, everything was crumbling. College application season was in full swing. My GPA was still solid, but my transcripts were flagged for behavioral review. My guidance counselor, the same one who once called me the most promising student of this graduating class, now avoided me in the hallway. My math teacher, who used to compliment me on my problem-solving style, suddenly handed back tests without a word, even when I scored 100%. Even Mr. K, my favorite literature teacher, stopped inviting me to the advanced workshops he held after school. It was like someone had flipped a switch, like I was radioactive. And still, no one would say it was Julian. But I saw it, in the glances, in the carefully worded, "We've heard some things, and maybe just lay low for now." It wasn't just that he was rich. He was connected. Julian's mother sat on the Glencrest board. His father had donated the new science wing. His godfather was the DA. You don't mess with someone like that, especially not when they decide you're an inconvenience. I tried reporting the harassment, the rumor spreading, the locker vandalism, the anonymous threats shoved into my textbooks. But the school said they couldn't prove anything.
We take all claims seriously, Alex.
The assistant principal had said. He looked exhausted, but mostly he looked afraid. My mother tried to help. God, she tried. She marched into the school once, her scrubs still on, circles under her eyes, her voice trembling with fury.
I don't care how much money that boy's family has. If my son says he's being harassed, I expect someone to do something about it.
They gave her a stack of forms. Promised to investigate. Nothing came out of it. Instead, my teachers grew colder. My locker got moved. For safety. And 2 days later, someone slid a photo under the door of our apartment. It was me, walking home from school. Underneath was written, "You don't belong here." That night, Mom cried in the kitchen and thought I couldn't hear her. The worst part? I started to believe it. Started to wonder if maybe I did bring this on myself. If maybe I shouldn't have provoked him. If maybe saying yes would have saved me. Maybe a few kisses. A couple of fake smiles. What would it have cost me, really? But then I'd look in the mirror and see the boy I used to be. And I'd remember, I didn't do anything wrong, I just said no. and that made me dangerous. By December, it was hard to sleep. I had nightmares, Julian's voice echoing in my ear, notes on my pillow that weren't really there. I kept imagining I'd wake up, and the walls of my apartment would be lined with surveillance cameras, drones hovering in corners like insects. I knew how crazy it sounded. But the worst part, Julian could do it. His family built the tech. He once told me they could get into any camera if they wanted. It wasn't until the second semester that I hit rock bottom. I'd made it to the finals of the National Science Essay Competition, a real shot at a full ride to Columbia. I worked on that damn paper for weeks, triple-checked my sources, formatted everything down to the last citation. And 2 days before submission, I got an email from the judges.
We regret to inform you that your submission was disqualified due to plagiarism.
Plagiarism? I almost laughed. Until I saw the attached screenshots. My essay, word for word, posted online under someone else's name a full week before I'd submitted it. I knew who had done it. There wasn't even a question anymore. Julian had hacked my drafts, posted them online under a dummy profile, and then reported me anonymously. And just like that, my last shot at college evaporated. I didn't cry that time. I didn't scream. I just sat on the floor of my bedroom for 2 hours, staring at the wall. Then I did something I hadn't done since I was a kid. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, pulled out my old notebook, the one with all the passwords, usernames, forum logins, the one I swore I wouldn't touch again. Because before I was the straight-A scholarship kid, I used to be a hacker. Nothing serious, just small stuff. Taught myself coding at 13. Started playing around with vulnerabilities in free apps. I once hacked my middle school's firewall to unblock YouTube. Got detention. Thought it was funny. Then I realized how deep the rabbit hole went. I could build backdoors, bypass security, trace IPs. It scared me a little, so I stopped. But now I was done playing nice. It took me 2 weeks to work through Julian's digital footprint. His email was protected by multiple layers of encryption. But encryption was a language I understood. Once I got in, I found everything. Like, everything. The fake accounts, the messages sent to teachers, the smear campaign dossiers he kept on not just me, but other students too. Ones who had crossed him in smaller ways. A girl who didn't return his texts. A boy who beat him at a debate competition. It was a web. And I wasn't the only fly, but the real bombshell came when I opened his audio folders. Because Julian recorded things, phone calls, conversations, even therapy sessions. And there, buried deep in a folder labeled private, was a recorded call between Julian and someone I didn't recognize. A woman, maybe a legal consultant. They were talking about evidence suppression, about how to bury complaints. And then she said something I'll never forget.
If that boy ever makes this public, your father will make it disappear, just like he did with...
Then the file cut out. Clipped. Intentionally. I sat back in my chair, pulse pounding. Julian wasn't just cruel. He was protected. He was a weapon pointed at anyone who challenged the system. And the system had made sure he stayed sharp. That's when the idea hit me. Not just revenge, exposure, not to the school, not to his parents, but to the world. Because the only thing power hates more than defiance is attention. The night I decided to burn Julian Vale's world to the ground, it was snowing. Thick, heavy flakes blurred the streetlights outside my window. Everything looked quiet, peaceful, like the world was holding its breath. So was I. On my desk sat a USB drive, encrypted, duplicated, disguised under a folder called Pre-Calc Notes. Inside it, all of it. Emails, screenshots, audio clips, access logs, deepfake code from Julian's personal files. Even that clipped voice recording that hinted at a family history of cover-ups. I had it arranged into a dossier, time-stamped and narrated. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't need to. The next morning I made 3 moves. I leaked the folder anonymously to the student body via an online Dropbox. I emailed it to 3 journalists. 2 local, 1 national, under a burner account. Attached was a cover message titled, How Glencrest Academy Protects Predators with Money and Silence. And finally, I scheduled an upload for 7:45 a.m. sharp to the school-wide parent portal. Hidden inside a report about grade analytics was a hyperlink that simply read, "Hear it for yourself." By 8 a.m., Glencrest was on fire. Not literally, but close enough. I watched from the back of the cafeteria as the first ripples spread. Students pulling out phones, gasps, stares, phones ringing, teachers pacing, whispers growing louder, and then someone shouted,
"He recorded Mr. Dawson!"
Is this real?
Holy shit. That's Julian Vale saying it.
I sat quietly, eating dry toast, pretending to scroll through my phone like everyone else. By third period, Julian was gone. Like gone. Pulled out of class by the principal and escorted off campus. The fallout was immediate. Students started coming forward. A sophomore girl confessed she'd lied about cheating because Julian told her to. A senior admitted he'd been bribed with access to Julian's test answers to plant drugs in a classmate's backpack. The administration? They tried to control it. First, they shut down the Wi-Fi. Then they tried to ban phones. But it was too late. The internet never forgets, and neither do the kids you hurt. By the end of the week, 3 teachers had been suspended. The headmaster issued a press release. Julian's parents released one, too, blaming a troubled mental health crisis. Which was hilarious, coming from a family that had buried real trauma beneath NDAs and threats for years. The press dug deeper. Old court records, bribery scandals, even an incident at Julian's previous school. A complaint that had been mysteriously dropped after a generous donation. The house of cards fell like it had been waiting for an excuse. And I was that excuse. You'd think I felt powerful. Vindicated. I didn't. I felt empty. Because when you spend that long surviving someone like Julian, revenge doesn't feel like a win. It feels like a scar. The week after everything went public, I got a message from Julian. I don't know how he got my number. I stared at it for a long time before I opened it. Julian.
You know they'll forget you again, right? You'll be a blip. I'll still be a Vale. You won't win anything in the end.
I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. He was already losing the one thing he couldn't replace, his invincibility. A few months later, I was walking across the school lawn, toward my mother's car, diploma in hand, when a voice called out behind me.
Hey!
It was Mr. K, my literature teacher. He looked older, tired, like the last few months had aged him more than the last 10 years. He walked up beside me.
I should have said something sooner. I knew something was wrong. I didn't do anything. I'm sorry.
I wanted to hate him, but I was too tired. So I just nodded and said, yeah. Then I walked away. I didn't get into Columbia. The plagiarism thing stuck on my record long enough to disqualify me, even after it was disproven. But I got into a good school. Not Ivy League, but honest. Hard-earned. I got a scholarship, a full one. Not through the school this time. Through a foundation that helps survivors of institutional abuse. Funny how that works. The last time I saw Julian was a year later. I was visiting my old neighborhood during a break from college. I ducked into a cafe, ordered a black coffee, and turned to find a place to sit. And there he was, at the far corner table, alone. No friends, no designer blazer, no carefully tousled hair. Just a quiet boy in a gray hoodie, staring into nothing. He looked like a ghost. I stood there for a second, frozen. My hands went cold. He saw me. We stared at each other. And then he smiled. Small, tight, broken. Not the smile of someone who thought he was better than me. Just someone who'd lost. And I realized something. I didn't hate him anymore. Because he'd already lost the only thing that had ever mattered to him. Control. People like Julian, they don't believe they can fall. But when they do, they fall harder than anyone. Because they were never taught how to land. So that's my story. Not a happy one. Not clean or pretty, but true. And sometimes the truth is the best revenge. Even if it doesn't come with applause. Even if no one ever thanks you. Even if it just means someone like Julian can never hurt someone like me again. Or someone like you.